Go off, so I guess it's right at 1 o'clock, so we can go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for being here, and welcome to the first Kentucky Monthly Climate Perspectives of Drought and Hydrologic Conditions webinar for 2021. It's great seeing a lot of the familiar names in the group as well as some new ones. So I'm looking forward to getting some feedback on that. We are coming here with you today. I'm Megan Shargorodsky. I'm with the Kentucky Climate Center and the Kentucky Mesonet. And the person leading the webinar will be Dr. Stuart Foster with the Kentucky Climate Center and Western Kentucky University. With that, I'll go ahead and pass over to him.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. I appreciate that. And again, welcome everyone and Happy New Year. Happy to be with everybody. We've got our webinar supporters out there through the National Integrated Drought Information Center or System and the Midwest Drought Early Warning System, and contribution from a lot of partners here that helped to make this possible, including the Kentucky Ag Weather Center, University of Kentucky, National Weather Service, Ohio River Forecast Center, USGS, lots of partners out there. Our next webinar will be in February on the 4th at the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. And we've got a picture there of our 75th Kentucky Mesonet station that was recently installed late, I guess in December, finished it up in Wayne County near Monticello. And as you can see from the photograph there, it's an excellent site in terms of monitoring there. So really excited to have that station added to the network. Again, it's a bit of a milestone at number 75. And we appreciate the support of the local community, including the fiscal court there, and the landowners that provided access to the site. Just a reminder again, we're not suffering from drought at the moment, but if you have not downloaded or accessed the impact reporter and the story map for documenting impacts, the links are provided for you there. Today we'll look at recent conditions in terms of temperature, precipitation, soil moisture, stream flow, drought conditions, not just here in Kentucky, but around the country. We'll take a look at impacts associated with weather and climate over the past month, and then we'll look forward to what we might expect to be coming our way in the near term, and then looking out a little bit farther to a seasonal perspective. And then we'll summarize that and have an opportunity if there are any questions, discussion there. Selected a couple photographs for this page today representing 2 new counties in terms of camera images. Want to give a shout out to the Kentucky Ag Development Fund and the County Ag Development Councils in Bath County and Nicholas County that provided support to help us upgrade instrumentation. So the Bath County picture is capturing the aftermath of the snowfall there on Christmas, and the one below there, Nicholas County, it's just an outstanding view shed there. So we're looking forward to getting a lot of really nice photos from that site. And certainly there were some folks here in Kentucky that did indeed have a white Christmas. So looking over the last 30 days at precipitation, fairly consistent across the state, no extreme variations. The lowest amounts are found in the northeastern portion of the state there along the Ohio River, with some stations that received just under 3 inches of precipitation for the month. And then otherwise, amounts tend to be largely between 3 and 4 inches across much of the state, and then across the southern tier, several locations that received more than 4 inches, There's one station there in Clinton County that had 5.28 inches at Mesonet Station, and then our station on the top of Black Mountain at over 4,000 feet was just a bit under 6 inches for the month. If we look out to the 60-day accumulation, the amounts go from roughly around 4 inches to up around 5 to 6 inches across much of the state, with the exception of higher amounts in the eastern portion, where there's some stations that had 7 to 8 inches of precipitation. And again, some of that was in frozen precipitation in terms of snowfall. But again, the increase from 4 to 6 inches, so there's basically about 2 inches over much of the state for the period that essentially corresponded to November. So that was a drier period. As you recall, we commented last month that November was the first month in over a year that we had received on average statewide below normal precipitation. And then if we go out 60 days, we're seeing amounts now that are generally around 10 inches to 12 inches in some of the areas that have higher amounts in the western part of the state. So again, roughly going from 4 inches over 30 days to about 6 inches, and then up to about 10 inches or more in much of the state. So we get back to a wetter period there. Again, you can see that the amounts are pretty uniform across the state, averaged over that 90-day period. A little bit drier area in the south central part of the state there, with some amounts that are a bit less than 10 inches. And in one case there, about 8 inches or so. Let's see, I'm trying to figure out which county that is. I'm forgetting my counties now. Looks like, is that Hart County there, I believe? So anyway, pretty consistent precipitation amounts across the state for that 90-day period. So we look at that relative to normal, the 30, 60, 90-day periods. Again, that 60-day map is the one that really kind of shows up large portions of the state that were below normal in terms of precipitation. The bright yellow areas are locations that were somewhere in the 75 to 90%, and the browner shaded areas are 50 to 75% of normal precipitation. So again, we had that dry period, and there was some developing dryness in the state. And if we look at the drought monitor here in a little bit, we had introduced some D0 across the state, portions of the state. And then if we look more recently, the 30-day period, again, all in all, pretty close to normal precipitation across the state, with the exception of the areas that are bright yellow, that again are 75 to 90% of normal precipitation. So that's not too far below. It's maybe about an inch below normal. And then areas that are in the green were areas that were above normal precipitation, and again, maybe somewhere upwards of about an inch above normal precipitation. So otherwise, just kind of summarizing there, then we had started to dry out there in November. We've still maybe a little bit dry for December. The Midwestern Regional Climate Center had not released its official statewide averages for December as of this morning. But I think looking at our Mesonet numbers, we probably came in a little bit below normal for a month as a whole. But again, not nearly as dry as we were the previous month. Temperature-wise, we were above normal. On the left side, if you're looking at the deviation of maximum temperatures from their average, and on the right side, if you look at the deviation of minimum temperatures from their average, both of those maps are pretty similar for Kentucky. We generally, somewhere from 1 to as much as maybe 4 inches or 4 degrees, above normal in terms of low temperatures and and high temperatures. The exception being in the southern tier of counties when we look at departures from the average for low temperatures. Some of those were right around what we would expect in terms of normal temperatures. Soil moisture and groundwater indicators, again, remotely sensed values. On the left, soil moisture for Kentucky, pretty much all in the white, which indicates somewhere between the 30th and 70th percentile, so pretty much around a long-term average. And then on the right-hand side, the remote sensed shallow groundwater drought indicator is showing that we're just slightly above average there in terms of groundwater levels. So again, this reflects a little bit of drying out, but you know, drying out from very wet conditions to conditions that are pretty close to normal. And then looking at soil moisture from selected Mesonet stations, I included 3 of the same ones that we had last month and swapped out one of them. So the Trigg County in the upper left, Hardin County in the lower left, and then Clinton County in the upper right. We looked at those last month, and you can see that you know, even though things dried out a bit in November, you know, we're past the growing season. Temperatures are cooling down. There's not a lot of evapotranspiration happening, and so even though it dried out a bit, our soil moisture stayed at you know, very comfortable levels there. And then I added in the lower right, put a new station in Carroll County up along the Ohio River. Again, that was an area that had been a little bit drier over the last you know, 30, 60 days. So tried to pick some stations here that were in areas of the state that had been drier to see whether we could see really any indication of that in terms of soil moisture, and it just doesn't really show up this time of year. So that dry period in November has had very minimal impact on us in terms of water supply up to this point. Stream flows over the last 7 days. Most of the values there are in the normal to above normal categories. I've got just a few that are in the much above normal. And again, we had a heavy rainfall event there at the end of December, beginning of January, that affected parts of the state. And we had the snowfall, which turned out to be heavier than anticipated in some areas of the state around Christmas. So there's a good bit of water introduced into the environment recently in different parts of the state, and it shows up in terms of stream flows. If we look at the 28-day map, fairly similar, although the normal category is much more prevalent here because we're starting to dip back in time prior to some of those heavier precipitation events. In any case, it's good this time of year when we can see stream flows in a normal category. Current flooding is not an issue across the state or the region for that matter. So again, that's a very positive thing. If we look back historically, we have seen some of our most significant floods, including the Great Flood of 1937 that was a January event, and of course we're just early in the month, but we're in a good situation at present. Now looking at the U.S. Drought Monitor, we've talked about this over the last few months, that we've seen an increase in the coverage of drought across the country over this past summer. And we have some large areas in the western part of the state, or western part of the country, and particularly the Southwest, where exceptional drought is prevalent, and we have extreme drought and severe drought conditions in parts of the Great Plains and California and even the parts of the Pacific Northwest. But when we come closer to home, here looking at Kentucky and our surrounding states, really nothing more than a few areas of abnormally dry conditions. In the case of northern Indiana and Illinois, a small swath there of moderate drought, but that's really about it. So we've been kind of paying attention to this because we're interested to see how this may be expanding or contracting as we get through the winter and start thinking about next spring. So the next map gives us an idea of how that pattern has changed over the last month. And fortunately, I think from a drought perspective, we can see that there has been improvement, and improvement particularly in areas that are closest to Kentucky. So again, I think that's maybe it's not a huge issue, but it's a positive sign to the extent that that's something we're paying attention to. We certainly talk about drought as a creeping phenomenon that kind of comes upon us, and so we don't only just look back through time and trying to get an idea of whether it's developing or not, but we look spatially to neighboring areas to see whether it may be expanding, kind of moving in our direction. So this is a pretty positive view in that sense. So storm impacts over the last 30 days, again, like last month, a rather benign period, not too much going on. There was a light snow and freezing rain event December 16th that affected areas around Louisville and kind of the I-64 corridor and down even a little bit in southeastern Kentucky and Breathitt County. But again, no real impacts reported with that. Then the 24th and 25th had heavy snow reported in many locations in the eastern part of the state. The only documented impacts were a case of a downed tree and some power lines or power disruptions in a couple counties there in eastern part of the state, but again, nothing widespread or long-lasting there. And then December 31st had a heavy rain event with some reports documented in the western half of the state, but again, no real impacts in terms of flooding or anything reported in conjunction with that. So again, a pretty quiet month. That's what we like to see if possible. So this month, by the way, we'll kind of pass on the ag impacts. It's kind of a quiet time of year. A lot of our farmers are preparing, starting to think about spring. A lot of ag meetings and that sort of thing going on right now, but a pretty quiet period. We'll be looking forward to having Matt Dixon back on with us next month. I know he's been working on some analysis of data and such that I think you'll find interesting in terms of looking at some of our recent climatic patterns. But having said that, then we'll go forward again with the outlook. The 7-day quantitative precipitation forecast for Kentucky shows very little precipitation expected over the period. Basically, in a circulation, we've got, there was a headline that came out a couple days ago about the polar vortex kind of splitting and getting some cold air kind of sent down our way. And we've seen the cooler temperatures, but really that pattern has not, there's not much moisture with that pattern, and with that coming down from the north, it's cut off moisture from the Gulf and Pacific and such for us. So not too much moisture in the environment in terms of precipitation amounts, and that's reflected in that 7-day total of generally, a 1/10 of an inch or less. 6 to 10-day outlooks, and then we'll look at the 8 to 14-day outlooks. Again, there was some concern with that colder air that kind of broke off and was drifting down in our direction, that could really kind of set up a pattern and bring us some winter weather, potential snowfall and such. But and the aftermath of that, it seems to be moderating. Models anyway are suggesting things may moderate a little bit faster than we might have initially thought. In any case, though, you can see the expectation with enhanced likelihood of below normal temperatures remaining to our south, with us here in Kentucky in the kind of normal, with expectation of pretty normal or typical winter temperatures, which are generally in the 40s, low 40s this time of year. And then on the right, an enhanced likelihood of drier than normal conditions in the 6 to 10 day window. Again, not typical of a La Nina pattern, as we've talked about the last couple months, and we'll talk about here again just shortly. 8 to 14 day outlook, you can still see that cold bias to the south. And again, we remain in an area that is for the most part with probabilities that would put us toward the near normal, what we would expect this time of year. No kind of indication otherwise. And precipitation, again, likewise, no real signal as to what we might see. So again, the models over the 6 to 10, 8 to 14 day outlook have a little bit of uncertainty in the eastern U.S. and as such, no strong signals for us in our region of the country. For January as a whole, and this was updated on the 31st of December, before the splitting off of the polar vortex and such, expecting warmer than normal temperatures for much of the country, and certainly the eastern portions and the areas to our north, New England and Great Lakes areas. So again, that forecast may already be a bit out of date, given the 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks. On the right-hand side, we can see a slightly elevated likelihood of above normal precipitation across the eastern half of the country, including Kentucky. Again, just about a 40%, maybe somewhere in the mid 40% range of above normal precipitation. So La Nina, we've been talking about that. Again, this is the update on La Nina status. Unfortunately, it doesn't time well with our webinar, so this is from the early part of December, has not been updated yet for January, but you can see from the December model and probabilities there that the December, January, February, March probabilities of La Nina are very strong. There's a likelihood that it will weaken as we get into spring, late spring period. That's not unusual at all. We'll see how that plays out, whether that gets revised going forward. But anyway, a 95% chance of La Nina continuing through the winter months. And for us, as we'll see, or yeah, go ahead, Megan. That tends to mean that we have an enhanced likelihood of wetter than normal conditions. If you look at the upper left, either the December, January, February, or if you're looking forward, the January, February, March windows in the blue shaded areas, those are the La Nina years. And you can see that there's a tremendous amount of variability, but overall, we tend to be a bit wetter in those conditions. And once in a great while, we tend to be extremely wet in those situations. But we do have years where we actually turn out to be drier than normal. And temperature-wise, again, December, January, February window shows that on average we tend to be a little bit warmer during that 3-month window, but that in January, February, March tends to revert back to closer to normal conditions, at least in terms of comparing La Nina and El Nino, but slightly warmer than neutral conditions. But again, quite a bit of variability there. given where we're located on the map. It's the signal for INSO circulations are just have a high degree of variability for us, high degree of uncertainty. So with that said, the seasonal outlook for January, February, and March is pretty much unchanged from the December, January, February outlook that we had last month. This is pretty much a standard La Nina outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. And so basically they're not seeing any strong signals in terms of models that would lead to changing significantly any probabilities there. So again, it tends to mean warmer to our south, cooler to our north. We're in an area that reflecting climate trends as much as anything, we have a slightly enhanced likelihood of warmer than normal conditions over that period, and we're very close to the bullseye in the Ohio River Valley, Midwest, where there's an enhanced likelihood of wetter than normal conditions, with drier conditions to the south and to the southwest. So again, we'll pay real close attention to whether things play out that way going forward, especially after the drier period there in November. So stream flows from the Ohio River Forecast Center, the outlook for January is generally anywhere from normal to above normal stream flows across the state. So again, that's kind of where we are right now, and we'll see whether that above normal precipitation materializes or not. And then this is a new product for us from the Ohio River Forecast Center. This is a 10-day outlook for potential river levels and flooding. So if you look at streams here in Kentucky, and it cuts off the kind of Jackson Purchase area of Kentucky, because that's not in the watershed covered by the Ohio River Forecast Center. But we're looking at a lot of green circles in Kentucky, which basically mean we're somewhere in that between 30 and 70% percentiles in terms of stream flows, which are effectively designated normal. You do have some areas in the Wabash Valley that are above the 70th percentile in terms of stream flows and have some possibility for some minor flooding or near flooding conditions, but we're not seeing that in Kentucky per se. Wildlife potential, wildland fire potential, get my words come out right here, for January, below normal risk, so that's a positive thing. We've kind of reverted from past months here, and again, after the period where we were drying out in November and started to introduce some abnormally dry conditions in terms of the drought monitor, we're now kind of switching back to a below normal probability of significant wildland fire in our part of the country. So summarizing, we look back, we had a dry November, the first dry month in a long time. Precipitation for December was probably, again, we don't have the official numbers, it was probably just slightly below normal on a statewide average. As we saw earlier, there were some areas of the state were a little bit above normal, some other areas that were a little bit below, but for the most part, we were fairly close on precipitation, and temperature was a bit above normal, but not remarkably so. Following an extended period, again, several months of where we had above normal soil moisture and groundwater levels, values are generally in the normal to slightly above normal category. Now, talk about several months of above normal, and talk about precipitation, November being the first dry month statewide in all year. Again, we don't have the final numbers from the Midwestern Regional Climate Center, but just looking at historical records and trying to guesstimate what the December total is going to be for the state, I think that 2020 is going to end up most likely being the 8th wettest year on record in Kentucky, going back to 1895. So again, it's been a very, very wet pattern that we've had across the state until the last couple of months. Okay, stream flows running near normal, above normal in a few locations with the recent rains and snow. And as we just mentioned, La Nina conditions expected to persist. Tends to be above normal precipitation, not guaranteed. Given the amount of drought that we've seen across the country, we're paying close attention to how these winter months play out. So that's basically the same bullet we had last month, and our perspective has not changed. So with that, Megan, I will send it back to you.
All right, thanks, Stu, for the presentation. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to either unmute yourself or type into the chat box, and we will make sure that it gets answered. I'll give about 30 seconds to a minute or so for anybody to unmute, and I'm going to go check the YouTube comments just to make sure that there's nothing there too. All right, I'm not seeing or hearing any questions. So I guess if you have any after you've had a chance to think about it for a little bit, feel free to contact any of our contacts listed here. Stu Foster, Matt Dixon, Bill Caldwell, or Chip Zimmer. Our next regularly scheduled webinar will be February 4th at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. Okay. Hold on, Ron Malinowski says that he has a question. Feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, I was just going to ask, I know since we're through a decade, are you guys going to be publishing like 10-year normals that'll be accessible on the Mesonet sites for all the stations?
Yeah, Ron, that's a great question, and it's something that we have indeed talked about. We have a really small staff, and so we have a long list of things to do, but that is one that has been on our radar. So our plan is to do exactly that, but I do not know what the timing of it will be. I know that we have some rather important deadlines here on some other things that are looming close at hand, but it is indeed something that we intend to do.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that, Ron. It's great to hear that other people are interested in it as well outside of just our small office. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions? Okay.
All right,
well,
Megan, I just want to jump in, and I apologize, but I know at the beginning of the presentation I kind of go through the standard comments there and give a shout out to our partners, but I just really want to express to folks how much we appreciate the partnerships we have and the opportunity to work with other agencies here across the state and at the federal level and the local input we get. Just really value all of the people that we work with.
I fully agree. We couldn't do it without them. That's for sure. So, all right. So next webinar in February. And keep in mind that there is also the Kentucky Drought and Hydrologic Impact Reporter that as we do start approaching the growing season, you could have that ready and report back any of the impacts that you're seeing in your area. So thank you so much for your participation. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email and we will get that answered. And we look forward to seeing you in February. Thank you, guys.